Trying to see if I can be out here capturing a few images before um, it gets completely finished. Getting rid of the port at center median. I did not expect them to be working today. There's definitely a different guy driving the Hungry Hippo today. During the building of this bridge, I found out that the original center of the flag, the original is supposed to be two slaves, two colored men, two Creoles. The original copy of it. This is, I'm assuming it would be possibly before the place got the name British Honduras. It might be like around maybe the 16 or 7 late 1600s, early 1700s, or maybe closer to the end of 1700s. So the original would have two colored or Creole men on there. So also doing some more research about piracy and stuff. I was just doing fact checking and research, being a pirate and living on a ship. One of the things that came across my mind and came to my attention was, how do they survive an extended amount of time on a ship carrying water? So pirates were pretty genius. The next thing I never thought about, or maybe it's because I was exhausted and tired and didn't have any more energy to put into it, but they also claimed that they were illiterate, or that they didn't know how to read. We gotta this is one of the things that I love. One of my avid followers from the US asked why they didn't build or create something that would allow people to traverse while it was under construction. Either maybe having like a little ferry, little boat or something to carry people to and fro, or why didn't they put up a temporary bridge? You see, because even though the bridge is still under construction, people are still using it. And I guess when you build and you do these type of projects, you have to factor in those kind of things to basically be open-minded and friendly to the needs of the citizens of that specific area and community. You gotta make it easy for those that don't have access to a grand amount of resources. Hungry Hippo is doing its thing. Okay, so back to the pirates and life on a ship. They were genius, they were clever, they were brilliant. So, um, to preserve water, if you just have water in bins for a long period of time, it will become contaminated and there will be bacteria or toxin in there that the human body will not be able to process. They're still in the Belizean spirit. Well, it shouldn't just be for a day, right? Or a month. It should be all year round to celebrate. And it also shows that we did have like eight or eight, well, let's say between eight, nine to about seven or six flags prior to this one. This flag right here. Um, also was known to have the area, the territory was known to be flying a pirate flag as well. I think that was the very first flag that was adapted to the region or the territory. So back to them life on a ship, um, they had to come up with clever ways to preserve water for the trip. Um, some of the fun and interesting fact was that water became more valuable than the booties and treasures that they would gain from their conquests and their adventures. He has skills. He rode his bike right next to that truck. So to avoid being mutiny, because that was another issue too. A lot of mutiny and revolts on the ships and stuff were based on the fact that the preservation of water um, and the preservation of life. People were threatened by the fact that if they didn't have enough water to sustain life, they would revolt against and create mutiny or would revolt against the captain. So they had to come up with clever ways during their voyage at sea and their time at sea. They would clean their ships and stuff and the sails and stuff during wet season or during the time when they could figure and read the skies and figure that it was going to rain. They would have their masts set up in a way that they would capture and harvest the water. But harvesting the rainwater or doing rainwater collection was genius and brilliant. But to keep it as well to where you would keep the pH level for human consumption, that was another trick and skill that they had to master and figure out. And the pirates were the first one. Most of the information stated that the pirates were the first to figure that out. So they stored their water in empty rum barrels and empty wine barrels, and the barrels may like contain other things prior. They might not have just used it for the consumption and storage of wine, whiskey, or rum. Um, so what they did, they would ignite fires inside those barrels and just create a charcoal inside the barrels, and the charcoal was a way to preserve the water and slow down the bacteria from taking over. They also made sure to store their water and the ships in the most safe and secure and coolest part of the ship as well. Another genius thing that they did was once they had the water inside those barrels that was charred and the fire inside it was contained and controlled, it was done so that they would not damage the structure of the barrel, so it could still hold water as well. They also stated that they would put some sort of like tar on something to help as well. And once they filled it up with the water, they would put silver in there. And they claimed that the silver from Spain were better at preserving and preventing bacteria from taking over. That was just, a little fun and interesting thing to say. But, back then, the information and the way how things were being done, It was still in its infancy phase, so they were learning and figuring out as they went along. They also were known to do desalination as well, where they would take salt water and turn it into drinkable water, but the process was long and tedious, and to not cause the ship to erupt into a major fire, they would have to man it 24 hours, so they would take shifts, and basically it would take, I'd say, maybe 2 hours to get a mouthful of water. And the waves, they were genius at figuring it out, and the safest way they would do it when the ocean was calm as well. So it was just life as a pirate, and like I stated once before, that water was the most valuable asset to them as well. Another way for them to preserve the water, they would either pour rum or whiskey inside the barrels as well. Yeah, they would get intoxicated, but it was another genius way on how to preserve and make sure to provide longevity to the life, because water, once it becomes stagnant, algae and bacteria would dominate and take over and ruin it, and if you consume it, it could cause illness, even death. So this is the reason why water was to store and keep water on board was critical. They even stated, some information stated, that it was far more valuable. The knowledge of it and preservation and preserving of water was far more valuable and important than silver and gold and the bounty and treasures they would get during their raids. Someone was harvesting worms for fishing. So modern day distillation, the process of making rum, whiskey, and possibly beer as well. So the creation of rum, or the modern day rum distillation system, was mastered and brought and homed in the New World by pirates and piracy on the ships. So, like I said, the water for distillation of the salt water, um, they used copper pots and copper pipes. They found out that copper pots and copper pipes did not rust, so that was a genius move on their behalf. Actually, they also tried other metals as well. They would put lead, but then lead, they later on found out that lead would poison the water and stuff and cause them to die. But they also became the most skillful pirates, knew that copper piping and copper pots were the most important and valuable for the preservation of water and water distillation, which is taking salt water and turning it into drinkable water. This process gave birth to the modern distillation of alcohol in the New World. I guess because the process of purifying their water using fire and flame, um, they mastered the process of making rum and alcohol as well, and that was what gave birth to all the New World and different nations and countries in the New World that does the process of alcohol making. So they were genius, they were brilliant, they were wise, they were extremely intelligent. So, like, they gave us the process of making alcohol, they gave us the process of purifying water. Horseback riding up the mighty Macal River. That's awesome right there. Capture that right there. It's a nice shot right there. So it might be kind of safe to say that the pirates were the first moonshiners in the New World. So they gave us moonshining. I mean the process of distilling, which is using the copper. How to preserve water. They also use like charcoal. They would use their shirts and different types of fabric. They would wash and clean them because they also found out that if they didn't wash and clean the sails and stuff and shirt and different materials that they were using to purify the bacteria and germs from that would just get transmitted or transferred into the water as well. So it took some skill to make sure they could have fresh drinking water on board. What I should have done, and I wasn't smart enough and wise enough to and witty enough to think about whether they use the salt after they did desalination of the salt water. Um, if they were able to use the salt that was left behind. Like I said, that process was slow and tedious. It took roughly about 2 hours to basically get a mouthful of water, palatable drinking water from that process. Meaning that they would have to do it on a much grander scale, but they were using copper pipes and stuff that was not as huge. But well, I would have to try to do more research to figure out how large the pipes were. These pipes that I'm looking at and doing my calculation and making my prediction is based on like 1 inch or less size. They can wipe down the outside exterior of the tank, interior, all parts that come in contact with the concrete. They can use bonyle mixed with kerosene and a little bit of diesel. Well, more diesel than kerosene, um, and some bonyle. They don't want to use bonyle and can use brand new engine oil. And that's one way to keep the concrete off your equipment.